Welcome back to the Impact Storytelling Podcast. I'm your host sabinemprobst, and today I'm joined by award-winning filmmaker, photographer, and artist Martina Trepczyk. Martina is a nomadic entrepreneur whose projects take her around the world. Born in a Polish family and raised in Austria, she holds a master's degree in filmmaking from Kingston University and received a scholarship for a practical PhD at Roehampton University. Martina transitioned out of academics and ventured into business, founding her own company. She directed and edited for prominent clients, including the UN Climate Change Conference, the British government, feminist startups, and NGOs focused on climate change and shark conservation. Her work captures cinematic ocean stories, fostering meaningful connections between audiences and the environment. Welcome, Martina. I'm excited to share your experience with our listeners. To start, what inspired you to pursue a career in film?
Hello, Sabine. So nice to have me here. I really enjoy your podcast and it's an honor to be here. What inspired me to be a filmmaker? I think I have a long background in several fields of arts, and filmmaking was kind of the medium that combined it all. I started with painting and drawing in my early childhood and started with analog photography when I was 14 years old. And then went to a school in Austria here that combines graphic design and communication design, where I tried out various techniques, screen printing and typography, and just tried everything that I found interesting. And I learned a lot from architecture, and I learned how to read light and to set light. And then I just really, really enjoyed photography. But what I found most inspiring is to bring everything together. And filmmaking has another layer where we have sound and music and the voice that just gives me, or the medium film, another depth, and that really resonated with me.
Amazing. What school was it that you went to? It sounds interesting.
In Linz, HTL 1 Goethestraße.
A friend of mine went there as well.
Really? Yeah, I loved it. It's from age 14 to 19. And then after that, I was part of the master class where I graduated with a diploma. And then I applied in Kingston University, London, and studied filmmaking in my master's degree and skipped the bachelor degree completely. Yeah.
Oh, that's how you were finished at such an early age. Okay.
Yeah, I graduated.
I didn't know you could do that. Amazing.
Yeah, I was a super nerd. I graduated with distinction at age 21 in filmmaking.
Amazing. Very cool. And what was your focus back then? Was it already like impact films or conservation? And
it was documentary.
Was that already a focus? Yeah.
Yes, it was documentary, and my main fields were directing and camera. I always enjoyed editing, but during my studies, I put the emphasis on directing and camera.
Mm-hmm. And when you were studying, did you already fall in love with working with women in film, or did that come later?
No, I think that's exactly when I fell in love with working with women, because I think as a teenager in that graphic design school, and then even early on in London, I had the big need, almost urge, to prove myself and never let anyone help me carry equipment. And if someone in the loans room would ask, so is your cameraman coming, or who is going to pick up the equipment, I would gonna give them a big speech and be like, hey, listen, I'm the camera woman. I can carry everything. I'm strong. I had a very big need to prove everyone, especially boys, men, that I can do it too. And when I flew to Kenya, which was the first travels outside of Europe for my master's dissertation project. I understood what it means to be a feminist, what feminism actually means at its core, not in the academic realm in Europe, where we discuss it from a very different point. And standing in one of the largest slums in Africa, being surrounded by these amazing women, really changed the narrative that I had created in my mind. And that changed a lot for me.
And from your academic and industry experience, do you see differences in films directed by men versus women? Do you think having more female directors would benefit audiences, or also female camera women?
Definitely. Short answer, yes, definitely, exclamation mark. I think there is a reason why it's called the male gaze. And I think the female perspective is such a different one. And many women I know and work with have such a subtle, nuanced, holistic approach, and they see things in a different light. And one of my favorite filmmakers in London who I learned from, he was a director at the BBC, he told me that there is nothing but the truth. There's always something of a truth, because it is always filtered through the filmmaker, through the eyes and the lens and the hands of the filmmaker in the editing room. So even if you and I were set out to film the exact same scene and take then even 5 more filmmakers, you'd have different angles, different perspective, and not just in a very literal way, in a metaphysical way, in an emotional way. So I think it's very important I think women are already in the field, but to empower them, because they are here and they're amazing and fantastic, and their stories are worth telling and worth watching.
Definitely.
And yeah.
And also to feel empowered to use the style they want to, and not feel like they have to do it exactly like the things they see already and that has been done. I think you can really use your creativity in your way and make your own projects and feel empowered to share your voice. And yeah, as you said, I think there are really many truths from all the people that work on it, from the director, and then also how the audience perceives it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much depth, and there's so much to discover.
And you now work independently, and your work often highlights ocean conservation. When did your connection to the ocean begin, and what led you to focus on it in your films? I also lived in Salzburg, so I know it doesn't exactly spark ocean vibes. Mm-hmm. Where did your passion for marine life come from?
That's good. That's true. Yeah. So I was born in Salzburg, but I am a daughter of 2 Polish migrants. So they left Poland as soon as the Berlin Wall fell. And then I was born in Salzburg, Austria, but my roots are in Danzig, Gdańsk, at the Baltic Sea of Poland. And so every summer my parents would bring me and my sister and to my grandparents, and they would drive us to the beach. And so we would spend pretty much all day, every day at the beach, and that just has a sense of not only belonging and nostalgia, but it feels more, I feel very peace at the ocean. So I think it just started very early. And then whenever I was at home in Austria, I would ask my parents if I could watch. We had a channel called ORF2, which was like Universum. So I was much more interested in whale documentaries, sharks, dolphins, wolves, foxes. Anything animal related was more interesting to me than cartoons.
It's nice.
And it's nice. Yeah, it's more interesting. And then I was very lucky that my dad, we were in Croatia once together for holidays, and the opportunity came along to try out scuba diving. And I was 12 at the time.
To learn so early.
And we did our open water together. Cool. Yeah, and that just it was unforgettable, and that we encountered an octopus together, and that it was just really special.
That's really cool. Sadly, I didn't start scuba diving until 21, but since then I'm hooked. Only was snorkeling before.
Yes.
But it's great that you learned so early. And was there a particular conservation story that made you realize you wanted to use art for environmental awareness?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if there was one particular story. Let me think about this. But because of my work, I'm very privileged to travel to very, very remote areas of our globe and to see it very firsthand, the state our oceans are in, or the coastlines are in, or that just really sparked this big drive within me to become active and to do something for it. Because I don't only want to succumb to this whole doomsday and negative climate crisis storytelling, because there are also so many inspirational stories, and there is so much resilience, there is so much magic that we don't give nature credit to, and how much it can just thrive. So I just wanted to highlight that more. But to answer your question, there wasn't one specific narrative that got me into that.
So all of nature inspired you, the wonderful underwater world.
Yes.
And what is your process from concept to complete film, if you are getting an idea, or how does it look like from your whole process?
I'm a very, very intuitive person, and a very emotional and spontaneous person, and I've learned to trust my instincts, and I have learned how to really work with that. So when something, rather than creating a concept first in my mind, it often comes as a feeling, as a notion, as something almost difficult to grasp. But when I feel very strong about something, I have to pursue it. And then I often have images in my mind, the way I want to translate what I feel. And then it is almost my, not approach, but almost like my task to then bring that into life. So, but I do work in two different ways, because when it is documentary, can have, you always, how to start, no moment happens twice. So sometimes you're just in the moment and you have to rearrange and work with whatever you have. And no shark passes by you twice. You don't know if it's going to be sunny and crystal clear waters. You don't know if it's going to be murky. You don't know if there's going to be a strong current. You don't know if one shark's going to turn up or 26. You just don't know, and these are big variables. But I can very much plan ahead which camera I'm going to use, what lens I want to dive with, what I want to shoot on, what frame rate. So all of these things I know very well, and I have a very clear image of how I want it. And then I'll make it the best of my abilities to try to frame it that way. Still juggling the, unpredictability of nature and documentary. And
your films are uniquely cinematic and poetic, distinct from traditional documentary styles.
Thank you.
How did you develop your style, and how are you planning these amazing shots like I've seen in Tigereyes?
Thank you. Thank you so much. They are distinct. I think because I'm already doing this for such a long time, I was able to really develop a handwriting, so to speak. And I am a very minimalistic person in general, and I like to get rid of anything that is unnecessary, strip it down to the bare core of what is essential. And then I learned a lot from paintings and architecture, the way light is set. I learned a lot from Caravaggio, Rembrandt, these very beautiful and incredibly thoroughly composed paintings. So I learned a lot from them. And then when I'm in the field and I only work with available light and I have always the same camera with me, but I can position myself in a different angle to the sun. And I can use, instead of this wall, I can use another one. So just being very creative with the very few things that I have, I can use them in a creative way to achieve the beautiful Rembrandt triangle for a portrait. And I just have the aspiration for every single one of my frames to be almost a standalone photograph. So if you were to pause my film, I would like to aim that almost anywhere you stop could be printed and could work as a fine art piece. That is kind of the idea behind it.
I can definitely see that. When I think of all the shots now, I can definitely see, you could kind of print all of them.
Yeah.
And you were talking a little bit about your equipment, that you use the same camera. Like, what equipment do you use?
At the moment, I'm using a Blackmagic Cinema Pocket, and I love her. She's very underestimated, in my opinion. A lot of people don't like her at all. Because there is no stabilization. It's a very small sensor. But you know what? I just love it because I use vintage lenses and it's all analog. And so I never worked with autofocus anyway. I never worked with stabilization anyway. I would prefer, if I'm on the back of a car and the car shakes, or if I'm on the boat and the boat is, in swell, I want to feel that. So I don't mind that it lacks all those functions. But photographs, I shoot on a Leica SL, and I just love that thing so much. And it's the same lenses. I use the same lenses for both. And up until now, I was diving on housing that I would not recommend to anyone. And this is not in a very just because I couldn't afford anything else. So I dove on a surf housing, and they have on their website, almost in capital letters everywhere, not suitable for scuba, not suitable for scuba. And I just, I couldn't afford anything else. So I just took it and went with it and tried it and pushed it to its limits. So for that, I found it amazing. But it floods every time I dive. There is a shot glass of water every time in it.
Hard stopping.
Yeah, I cried. It didn't stop me, I find it a bit lazy to say that I don't want finances or the limited access to technology or gear limit myself in my creation. So I just wanted to work with what I have. But I dove once to 45 meters for a thresher shark, and at the safety stop I watched, because it has a transparent back, I just watched it fill with water, and I had to, because it was so deep, I had to be at the safety stop. I couldn't bail. So I just watched it flood, and I was just crying and counting in my head, can I afford another one?
Yeah, I had a similar experience once.
That was painful.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
I was filming in Iceland, and I did my second dry suit dive ever, and I was filming a wonderful diver there, and it was the first day of shooting of a whole week, and I didn't even really realize it started flooding a little bit. It was also surf housing. And then the dive guide was pointing at the lens of my camera, and because I was holding it down at that moment and it was full with water. Thankfully it didn't reach the camera. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do if my camera's broken
Same
now?
with me.
First day of shoot. But yeah, thankfully it didn't reach the camera.
My God.
But yeah,
It hurts.
it's crazy if you can afford like a proper housing and you use like a cheap one.
You pay the price. Yeah. But you know what? Also, I think it's brave of us to go with what we have and shoot anyways.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think not a lot of people know how much it actually costs to gather all of that gear that you need. So, you know, diving already is so costly. And the dry suit, the gear, the backplate, the regulators, everything. And then the camera itself, and then the lenses itself. And then you have to have a housing. So it just really adds up.
And then the ports for the housing that don't come with it, and the lights and everything.
Yes. And then you need a suited case for all of your gear, because otherwise at the airport it will break. And the dive computer, and it's just it's a lot.
I feel like no one talks about how much gear you have to carry when you like have all the camera gear, and then you have all the dive equipment. I usually have a backpack with like 20 kilos, but since I'm kind of a tiny person, I'm not really tall. No one ever thinks of weighing my backpack because they think I can't carry so much. So
yes, same. Oh my God, yes. I'm tiny, so people are sometimes surprised how small I am. I'm 1.55 meters and I weigh 42 kilos. And usually my luggage is heavier than my body weight. And it's madness.
It's hard to carry everything. But
yeah. No, it just, every time I board a plane, and then I same as you, I have all my most valuables, which means all cameras, all lenses, and laptop and hard drives in my backpack. And then every time I'm on the plane and the storage place is a bit higher, someone, usually a man, stands up and offers me to help. And every time I have that moment where I'm like, sure, if you'd like to break your back, try to lift my bag, please. And then they're always surprised because they don't expect it to be like, 17, 20 kilos, just the hand luggage. Yeah.
Well, let's go to what just happened, and that was the premiere of your newest independent film in Vienna. How was it for you to show a fully booked cinema your film, knowing they all came for your work and the message behind it?
Oh, it was wonderful. My short film, my awarded short film, just had its premiere in one of my favorite cinemas in Vienna, which is the Film Casino. And, this film traveled for a long time across countries, was screened at several film festivals. It won 6 awards, 5 finalist positions. Amazing. And I am so very proud of it. And I've had so many screenings and I attended Q&As, but to have it screen like this and to have not a film festival audience there, but my parents, my sister, my boyfriend, my closest friends, my just really such a loving community that just felt so special to me. And to bring Humpty from the Maldives was just incredible. Because we also had wonderful screenings in the Maldives, and that was special for its own reasons. We had one that was under the night sky, an open air screening that was just mind-blowingly beautiful. Because the Maldives are just this otherworldly space, right? And then we had another screening once that was in the capital of the Maldives, Male, where it was just filled with her friends and her close ones. So that was special. But this yesterday was very liberating and freeing in a way, because now it's over and now it will be released finally.
Yeah.
So to reach that point meant a lot for me, because now chapter is closed and Tigereyes can finally be released.
Sounds very special for sure. So, your award-winning film Tigereyes will be released on Waterbear Networks. By the time this is out, it is already released. That follows Hamna Hussein Hamti, the first female Muslim scuba diver on a remote Maldivian island, who dives with tiger sharks. Wearing a hijab, she aims to break stigmas of both sharks and cultural perception. It's a powerful story. How did you first encounter Hamti's story, and what did you hope to convey?
I met Hamti. Her full name is Hamna Hussein, at this very, very remote place. It is infamously known throughout the Maldives as Shark Island. It is the second to last atoll of the Maldives, called Formula. And it is also home to, believed, I guess proven at this point, the largest tiger shark population. Over 350 ID'd tiger sharks. And when I went there in March 2022, I just wanted to see them and dive with them and film them. And as I traveled already with all my gear, I had everything with me. But I wasn't prepared to one day stumble across this loud and bold and beautiful person. And we just hit it off, and it was Ramadan at the time. So that almost every cafe and restaurant was closed, except for the Harbor Cafe. And when we met, we decided to go for dinner the very same evening. And after not too long, we discovered that we have so much more in common than what sets us apart. And that although we're coming from so different backgrounds, we have so many similarities, and we bonded instantly. And it just turned into this beautiful friendship. But it was this very first night, where I jotted into my notes app on the phone the first lines that later became the opening of the film. Because her story, being, at the time we met, she was the only female shark guide on the island, and the only scuba diver and scuba instructor. And luckily she's not anymore. Throughout the last 1.5 years, she has been educating and training women off her island to learn how to swim and scuba dive, and bring them from open water to rescue diver. And it's amazing. And these women are badass, and I love them. So that's how we met, and I expanded a little bit, but I hope that was okay.
Great. Yeah, I saw a little bit of it on social media, and it looked really inspiring. And it's great that there are now more women diving already. And your film also addresses sensitive topics that many people often shy away from talking about. How did you approach handling these complex subjects?
So which of the difficult topics are you talking about? Because we have, for one, we have the stigma of sharks. We have hijab or hijab wearing women. We have mental health issues, and we have abuse. So which topic are you referring to?
Yeah, I actually wrote down all of them, as your film does handle a lot of important topics there.
For a short film that is only 12 minutes, it is quite dense, and it takes you on a journey, and it's very, very emotional and truthful to what Hamti went through. And, it was my task to be as mindful, as careful, and as respectful as I possibly could be. Because my aim is to be uplifting anything that is already there, and to portray her and to elevate her story. And we were in this beautiful dialogue because it is these topics that a lot of people shy away from, and it strips you bare to your very essence, cultural and religious beliefs and mental health. So we were in dialogue, and there was not one scene or sentence that I would release without her consent. So everything is her own voice and her narration. We sat down in a 3-hour interview, cross-legged on the floor, and we prepared every bed linen and sheet and pillow and towel, everything that we had, because we wanted the sound to be good. And in the Maldives, they often have tiles, and that echoes too much. So we just sat down, and I asked her about everything from her childhood, her favorite color, her favorite shark, what she dreams of at night, what she wants to achieve, her goals, her fears, her disappointments, her biggest heartbreaks. So, and then from this 3-hour conversation, I picked snippets. But I am also very, very aware that this is a way where you could very easily manipulate it into something that wasn't said. Because editing is such a powerful tool. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the film is not made on location, it is made in the editing room. And this is where a lot of powerful decisions can turn a story one way or another. So this is where I was especially mindful and respectful. And I often asked myself if I'm doing this for the right reasons, if I'm doing her justice, if this is now my opinion or is this hers? So just a lot of back and forth.
Yeah. Did you work closely with her during the editing as well? Like, did you show her in between, ask for her opinion, or only afterwards you showed it to her?
I showed her when I reached a point of not satisfaction, but when I was content with an edit. I think I showed her edit number 24. Because I reached a point where I knew that now I'm really, really, content is, I think, the best word, with every segment. And I might be heartbroken, but I would be okay if she said I need to take something out. But I wanted to present her something that I could stand fully behind, because I think you can only land this one shot, this one first impression. And so if it's not there yet, but you know its potential, but if it's not there yet and you spoil it, it wouldn't have made sense for anyone. But from that moment where she has seen it, then we were in this back and forth. And then she said, hey, actually, now that I watched it, these 2 sentences expose too much. Could you please cut them? And I was like, yes, of course. Yeah. But she didn't actually had many remarks, actually.
Yeah.
I think the dialogue happened because we were so good friends that we got to know each other so well. So that's what I meant with dialogue. In the conversations, what hijab means to her, what the Muslim culture means to her, what overcoming these obstacles mean. So those were separate processes.
Yeah. Let's watch the trailer to give also the listeners a better sense of your work and what we are talking about in case they haven't watched it yet.
Roaming the oceans, ruling the world, mislabeled, misunderstood. There's nothing more feared on this entire planet than a woman in her power speaking her truth. I wasn't living until I started doing this.
The shots are stunning and poetic and cinematic, and assume a lot of thought went into every single shot in the pre-production and planning everything. How did that process look like for you? There are a lot of shots that look really cool, but don't look like it was just documented. I'm sure you planned that. So, did you have storyboards, mood boards, or how did that look like for you?
Yes and no. A lot. How to explain? So, for example, let's talk about the scene when she told me about her first suicide attempt and her suicidal thoughts. And she told me how the sky was changing to this red and orange and deeper orange, and just she could just see flames everywhere and everything was red. So when I heard that, I saw in my eyes this scene, and I knew that I had to put her in a red fabric, and I wanted to wrap her in it so that she would be part of this rage. And I wanted to have this, because there's this one beach that's also where she experienced it and where she saw her last sunset. So I wanted to be at that beach, and at that beach there are just very wild waves, because currents meet and waves break when they meet the shore. So I wanted to place her there. But aside from that, I walked into a fabric store and bought a red piece of fabric, and then placed it around her and just told her to wear brown, as close to her skin color as possible. So that's for this shot. And then the rest is, when you're on location, you see that the sun sets west. So I'm going to place her here so that she is side lit and to have the waves break against her. But I wanted her to stand firm. So this is how the shot came about. So these directions on set is me then saying, have a wider stand, lower your shoulders, gaze into the sunset, now look into the camera. But it's not that much planning as you might think.
Okay. What about the shot where she's on the boat with all the men standing behind her? I thought that was also a quite powerful shot, for example.
Thank you. What did you make of that shot?
Well, it looked like she is leading the men now, that like she's empowered and that they follow her and respect her.
Beautiful. I love that. I think this is one of the shots that spoke a lot of controversy, and a lot of people see different meanings or read different meanings into that. And this is also something that I was inspired by MIA. What is the song? I will remember. But it was when the crisis in Southern Europe happened, and there were a lot of refugees migrating from Northern Africa across the Mediterranean Sea and arriving in Greece, Italy, and Spain. And so MIA in this video sits in the middle of a refugee boat, and she's the only woman and surrounded by all of these men who try to flee into a different future. And so I just love that image so much, but I wanted to make it mine. And I wanted to make it Hamti's story. So that was just something that I saw, and I wanted her to lead. I wanted them all to be more subtle. So black was just the easiest choice because everyone owns a black t-shirt. And I wanted her to wear something where she feels powerful. So in that instance, I told her, wear whatever you want. I want you to feel great. I want you to feel bold and empowered. So she came with this snake pattern thing. And then actually all these men in this scene are like her biggest supporters. They have the warmest personalities, and bless them. So one of them is her dad, her brother is in it, her close friends are in it, her partner of the time was in it. Another friend of mine is in it. So they were like just really great men who were supporting her. And so I think for me, what support means is if I have your back. if I have your back, I just wanted to have that literal. So I asked them all to place their hand on her back. But some people, when they see the shot, they see it as, I'm going to hold you back, I'm going to keep you. Which, from an artistic point of view, for me is totally fine, because I think that's what art is for, to move you and to spark a dialogue, a discourse. So that's totally fine for me, but it was intended as this beautiful, loving support, as this I've got your back.
Wonderful. And I think some parts of Tigereyes were shot on film. What challenges did that pose, and why did you decide to include film elements?
I'm just this, analog loving nerd. I love analog so much. If I could, I would shoot much more analog. But I love to travel with my Super 8 camera, and I had 2 cassettes with me. And one cassette has 33 meters, that equals 3 minutes 30 of footage if you film at a frame rate of 18 frames per second. So I just chose which moments I wanted to elevate, and then also, not out of necessity, but from a stylistic standpoint, underwater, it was filmed by 2 people actually. So I was an underwater camera operator on the Blackmagic and the surf housing, and then also Kyle Repke, he filmed on a red Komodo in a Nordicam housing. And so these 2, so the red with the Sigma lens has such a sharp, pristine look that it's very standalone. And then my vintage lenses on the Blackmagic has a very, very distinct look. So all the close-ups you see are mine on the vintage lens, if you will watch it again. And they're very different. So I just wanted her to have, and also I added the cinema scopes. So when she's underwater, I wanted there to be this peace and freedom, and to have the expansion and the space, and just this free feeling and space. And so when we are topside is where she was struggling with. The Super 8 has a different format. It's not widescreen, it's 4:3. So you have the scopes here, and it narrows your view. So I think that just all on very subtle levels enhances and underlines the feelings that her story was bringing on her own, but then the uses of which lens goes where, and what medium goes where, and which scene do I film, those were selective choices.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever worried that maybe something goes wrong with the cassette and you don't have the shot? Did you do like a backup or something, like with your Blackmagic on the memory card?
Yes, everything was filmed on land with the Blackmagic, and also the scenes where she is standing on the shore and the waves crashing against her in red, that is also shot with the Blackmagic, but additionally was shot on the Super 8. And then, of course, when I developed the footage, the Super 8 was just so much more beautiful. So that came, and that made it into the cut. And so same with the scene where she has the hand placed in front of her mouth. That scene I also filmed. It was filmed with the Blackmagic and the Super 8. And both made it into the film.
How would you describe your overall style of your work?
I would say it's very delicate, yet powerful. I think the more time you give it or look at it or let it breathe, the more you see how powerful it is. And maybe at the first glance, it appears very soft and delicate and minimal, but actually there is so much behind it. And I like that. I like that. I like depth. I like gravitas, and I want to say a lot in this as compact as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your style definitely.
I think that's a good summary.
Yeah, it is. Definitely at the first glance, you don't think that the stories are so deep. And then when you get something to think about, not only beautiful images, but definitely also something to think about.
Yeah.
And your film's music was also incredibly powerful, at least in my ears. And David Fura, your composer, so did he suggest including Humpty's voice in the music, or was that your idea?
So yes, David Fura, he is incredible. He is such a brilliant musician and such an amazing composer and sound designer, and he mixed it all and he mastered the thing. He spent months in the studio. So actually with the song Tigereyes, I love music so much, but for the life of me, I can't sing and I can't play any instrument, but I love music. So I just heard the lyrics in my head and I wrote them down. I just enjoy writing like that, that poetic kind of writing. And I wrote it also onto my phone in the notes. Oceans carry me. Away I go, and stuff like that. And at the end of our 3-hour interview, I was like, okay, Humpty, now I have a little surprise for you, because this woman is not only a talented diver and a born leader, she can also sing. So I was like, here you go, why don't you sing this a cappella for me, because we have the mic and everything set up. And she's like, girl, are you crazy? And this is how she talks. I love her for it. And she's like, there's no melody. What's the rhythm? What's the key? What do you mean sing it? And I'm like, whatever comes to your mind. And then we just tried to figure it out as we went. And she said that she would feel more comfortable in this pitch. And I was like, yeah, just go for it and just go slower. So I just directed her to the best of my abilities. And then we gave this to David, and I was literally like, here you go, try to make something out of it. And he came back with this beautiful score that is now theme song of a film, and we will release it on Spotify because it's that good.
Amazing, yeah, it is really nice.
That was with the score Tigereyes, but there are other music tracks in the film that had a completely different approach, because with them, there were already segments edited, and then he composed to that. And that was all his creation. So there I trusted him fully, and he played me back and forth things, and he asked my opinion and how do I see it, or how do I want to, what feelings do I want to create or evoke. So that was very beautiful synergy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think both together, the images and the wonderful music and everything just made it really impactful. And what do you think makes a story impactful?
I think, to answer it briefly, I think it's truth. I think you can bravely say something truthfully and lay meaning into it. I think it becomes very powerful. I think what I get very bored and discouraged by is so much fuss about wanting to be something, pretending to be something, trying to cover it up, trying to make something. But when you just strip it down to the core of what is, And if you say that truthfully, then that's so much more powerful than anything else. And then it doesn't matter what camera it is shot on. It doesn't matter what mic it has been recorded on. If the story is strong, it can be filmed on an iPhone and the rest will follow, I think.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take you to complete the film from concept to release?
Wow. Let me think. So it was filmed March and April 2022, and I edited until September.
Mm-hmm.
September, October. Mm-hmm. Then there was a little break. David was also in the studio. And then it was finished in April 2023. Mm-hmm. 2023, we went back into the studio and we finished the last tracks and last sound designs. Yeah. And then it started running on film festivals. So it was running on film festivals from May 23 until this week.
Yeah.
Was the last screening.
I think sometimes people forget how long it takes to make a short film. I think they only think, oh yeah, of course a long film takes a really long time, but also short films can take quite long. And then, yeah, the film festivals. Did you have a film festival strategy as well, where you wanted it to be seen?
I would have loved to have a strategy. I literally just logged into Film Freeway and just submitted everywhere. Or anywhere that I thought would be relevant, that would either have a feminist focus or ocean theme or diversity focus. And then, of course, I really, really wanted it to be played on Jackson Wild.
Yeah. You were successful.
And that was really the highlight. That was the highlight of my career, yes. Tigereyes was selected finalist in the category of Breakthrough Film 2023. So that was the highlight of my career. Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, Jackson Wild is such a great opportunity for filmmakers to meet each other, to network, and to show your films. I was selected the year before for a Summit Fellow, so that was my first experience with Jackson Wild. So yeah, it's really amazing to meet everyone and make connections.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's just so many like-minded people, and there is this nature conservation focus.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
And
that you had
I really, really enjoyed. Yeah, I didn't make the film hoping or planning for a film festival success or hoping for awards. I think they're a nice byproduct. But what I think stands out to me most is how much impact it has in a cinema, and to see fully grown men tear up and come up to me after a screening and be like, this really moved me. Thank you. I never thought about this before. Or a judge came up to me and he said that after watching it, he for the first time spoke with his 2 grown teenage boys what it means to wear a hijab. So, to have these sparks and to have these flames that really just turn into this wildfire of inspiration, that is to me really what the film festivals were about. And it's just so beautiful to see that it resonated within the ocean space, but also at film festivals that, that were ethos film festivals, diversity film festivals. That was really important to land there.
Amazing. And now it's on Waterbear, and why did you choose this platform? Now everyone can go and see it, by the way. I will link it down below.
I was in conversation with Casper, acquisitions team Waterbear, already right after I finished the film. And then I wanted actually to submit it almost 2 years ago, so right after finishing the editing stage, but then we needed more time with the sound and music. And then literally one of the first festivals, it won an award. And a lot of film festivals have the guidelines or the rules that it must not be accessible outside, because if it is already screened or played somewhere else, how could you get people into cinemas? So I said, okay, I'm just gonna wait until that festival finishes, and then this one, and then this one, and then I'm like, well, let's just ride that wave. And I didn't know how long it would be. And this year I just emailed Casper from Waterbear, and I just said to him, I think I just need this baby to be out. And it's time to release it. And I chose the platform because it's such a wonderful place to see documentary formats, but it not only has feature length, it has also short films. And I think this is such an underrated form of communication. I think it's brilliant and I love it. And some of my favorite films are also on there. Shark Water is on there. Rob Stewart was such a great conservationist. There are so many wonderful pieces on there. So I enjoy that.
Definitely. I love it too. I also have 2 films on Waterbear. And it's
Which ones are those?
Mediterranean is one, and Waves and Ice is the other one called. Yeah.
This I haven't seen yet. Waves and Ice.
Yeah, that's
I
the
will
one.
watch. Is that the one where your lens was in the water? Oh my god! Okay.
Someone in Iceland. Yeah, and Mediterranean was my master thesis project, where I talked with ocean conservation organizations and scientists about different conservation topics of the Mediterranean Sea, and also shared their story, their connection with the Mediterranean.
Nice.
And talking
you finished
about
that a while ago, no?
Yeah, it's 2 years now on Waterbear, so I think 2.5 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
And talking about the ocean and diving, for this film, you personally dived with tiger sharks. Was this your first time diving with sharks? And how did it feel to be in the water with these magnificent creatures?
Definitely, it were my first tiger sharks.
Mm-hmm.
So when I arrived on Fumula and met Humpty, these were my first tiger dives. I have seen other sharks before. I was lucky to encounter black reef tips in Thailand and Indonesia, and I was lucky enough to see grey nurse sharks in Australia.
Nice.
My goodness, I was terrified of the grey nurse sharks, which are just so harmless. But the viz was so bad, and I could barely see the tip of my fins. It was freezing cold. There was no visibility, and I knew that it was an area full of great whites. So that dive in Australia was, I was a bit tense. But when I saw them, I completely loosened up, and I was just mesmerized.
That's great.
But it was in the Maldives that I saw tiger sharks for the first time. Yeah.
Amazing. I also remember my first time diving with sharks. I was just doing my scuba diving license also in Australia, and I saw just a leopard shark, and I was so excited, screaming underwater to my instructor, look, here's the shark. Yeah, I think you don't need to be afraid of every shark, and they're not out to get you. For the people that don't know much about sharks, I think that's something important to keep in mind, to not be so afraid of them.
I think Jaws did a wonderful job at imposing tons of fear. To be fair, it was just a brilliant fiction film, but it could not be foreseen that it would turn one species into something so feared of. And that was something I wanted to just portray in a very different light, because what I feel when I see sharks, especially tiger sharks, is this awe and wonder and fascination. And to me, they are just this symbol of power. They have been here longer than trees exist. They have been longer than the birth of the Northern Star. They are just this historical wonders that have been in the ocean ever since, well, life came to be. So to dive with these creatures and to share their waters and to have them lock eyes on you, it's just one of the most privileged and beautiful experiences ever. And when I saw my first tiger shark for the first one, and I'm sure you know, when you dive and your mask is foggy, it's annoying. You have to purge it. And so I saw my first tiger shark and I think my heart skipped a beat. And then I was like, why do I have to clear this mask so many times? It took me a while to realize that I was starting to cry. And it was not water that was coming in, it was my tears. Because it was just so beautiful. So that's an anecdote I like to give.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing experience to dive with sharks. Just need to be aware of them and be respectful and learn a little bit about their behavior, but there is no need to be afraid of them. And impact storytelling can involve difficult environmental and social issues. How do you manage the emotional weight of these topics?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if managing is a good word. I think by creating these stories or films or photographs, it serves more like an alchemy almost. Like by making this film, you have no idea how many times I cried over my keyboard making Tigereyes, or other short films that tackle, abuse and power over women's bodies. So everything I feel, I literally have to let it out in the process, and then anger comes, or every other shade of emotion. So I feel like I don't want to manage my feelings somewhere else. I want to bring all of that I have to birth it into that piece of storytelling, because I think that's why they are so nuanced and why they're so dense, because I lived through so much doing it. And I think, or I'm sure, that when you learn how to appreciate all shades of emotions, you could actually learn so much from it instead of putting them aside or trying to run away from them. So that's why I love to use art as alchemy to transform something new out of this pain.
And you also run a business, and I'm sure that's also demanding, especially when trying to make a positive impact. How do you navigate those entrepreneurial challenges?
Also a good question. It's been the most difficult financial year for me. And it's been such a struggle. It got to a point where almost every week I wanted to quit. I wanted to throw in the towel. And whenever I spiral, I just sit there for a bit and then I roll my sleeves back up. And it's not that I'm too stubborn to give up. It's more that I'm so devoted to what I do that I accept the challenges what self-employment brings. But the joy of creation is so much bigger that I just accept that part. But as filmmaker and photographer, and as like you, we are also our own bookkeepers, we're also our own accountants. You need to be, market yourself, you need to write emails, you need to acquisition clients. It's a lot to keep in check. And just because maybe we are great filmmakers, storytellers, photographers, visual artists, doesn't mean that you're necessarily great at socializing, at networking, and accounting. Accounting was very difficult for me. It was this overwhelming thing, and I didn't want to make anything wrong, and I just wanted to get it right. And then it was just so, yeah. But then, I found a great accountant who I can really trust and who I can rely on. And so I could outsource that. So I think in the future, I would love to have someone else on my team so I could outsource a little bit more of the organization, of the logistics, and be more in the creative sphere again. But until then, I have to juggle.
Totally get that. I think the thing that we're passionate about is telling the stories, getting them out there, making aware, not so much the numbers, the bookkeeping, and all this stuff. But that's also something I think when people think of our job, they think of this glamorous job. We're just diving and sharing stories, not of all the hard work behind it that has to go in it. So I think when someone wants to start, they should also know about that. It's not just traveling around and seeing wonderful places. It is that as well, but it's also having to invest a lot of money, especially at the beginning, having to carry heavy equipment, and having to make money to live. We can also not just live from air. So, yeah.
It brings certainly a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what else I'd rather be doing. And I feel at home behind the camera. I love it.
Yeah. There's also for me definitely nothing else I would want to do, and I don't think I could feel so passionate and so driven for anything else than for this topic and doing this work. Yeah. For those inspired by your work, what advice would you offer to aspiring filmmakers or photographers looking to make a difference?
Oh, that's beautiful. I think I would not shy away from the lack of access or lack of finance to, access to education, access to gear, access to fancy foreign locations. I think I would just start. And by starting and setting out, you by necessity have to develop your own your narrative. You have to make it work. You have to learn how to tell a story from beginning to end. I think by making it work, you will find out what works. And then I think mistakes are a great teacher. And I think we shouldn't be held back by means.
Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation and the great advice. And I hope everyone is going to watch it on Waterbear. As I said, I will link it below. It's really a powerful story. And can't wait to see what comes next for you, what projects you will release next. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sabine. This was lovely. I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm also excited to see what comes next. And I love to be part of your community. I think the podcast series is great.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.